This is Ray Flores for Premier Boxing Champions, alongside my dear friend, a colleague, a man who's a legendary trainer, been there, done that in the sport of boxing many times over again, a part of the legendary Goossen family, the outstanding analyst for Fox, Joe Goossen, joining us. Joe, my man, Happy New Year, first of all. And as we begin 2022, we got a fun card coming your way on Saturday, January 1st, with all heavyweights on pay-per-view.
How about that? I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really looking, and I'm even more looking forward to it because I'm going to be calling it. So I'm really excited about it.
Well, let's get into it, Joe. The main event will be Luis King Kong Ortiz, former world title challenger, taking on the former heavyweight champion of the world, Prince Charles Martin. In your mind, Joe, do you think that the winner of our main event on this all heavyweight pay-per-view live on Fox Sports PBC pay-per-view puts themselves in line for a potential title shot down the line?
Well, I think so, because you've got two guys that have already, let's put it this way. Charles Martin has already been champion. He was the IBF champion, although be it for about 3 months before he ran into Anthony Joshua. But so, yeah, he's been there. He climbed the mountain and made it to the top and did something that very few people do, and that's win a heavyweight championship. So he would definitely be deserving of it if he beats Luis Ortiz. On the other hand, Luis Ortiz has only lost 2 fights in 34 fights, and both of those were to Wilder, and both of those fights he was really in the fight, especially in the first one, where he had Wilder hurt several times. And in the second fight, he was dominating the fight early on for the first 4 or 5 rounds easily, until Wilder closed the gap on him and then caught him with that great right hand. So I think either one of these guys would certainly be in the running for another title shot, whoever that winner might be.
Joe, the way I look at this fight is that I look at Luis Ortiz as somebody that he ran up against Deontay Wilder twice. No shame losing to him. Certain times guys have your number. When it comes to Deontay Wilder, he came up short against Tyson Fury. No shame to that. Certain guys just are the perfect antithesis of who you are. And I think as we look at Luis Ortiz's career, I think that has been the case, but I don't think he should be unfairly judged because of the fact that he lost to Wilder, because Wilder's style just didn't mesh well with his.
Well, you might say that there was a lot of give and take in that first fight, just like there was, just like the last fight with Wilder and Fury. There was a lot of give and take, I'm not so sure Wilder had his number per se, because he didn't have it in the second fight for the first half of that fight.
Yeah.
And in the first fight, again, he was the first one to really hurt Wilder, and you might say expose him in a little way there. He certainly came out on top, Wilder, both times against Ortiz, just like Fury did after their first draw, the second and third fight.
Yeah.
There's, like I say, you might say he has his number because he won and beat Ortiz twice, but again, no shame in that. Wilder was on a real hot streak. He was undefeated at the time. He was knocking everybody out, and there's no doubt about it. There's not a person that'll tell you, including Fury, that Wilder can hit. I mean, either hand, so
no question.
That's the thing about the heavyweight division. They're very powerful guys, and one punch can turn a fight around very easily in that division.
Who do you think has the advantage in this fight between Luis Ortiz and Charles Martin? Because everything I'm hearing from Manny Robles and the entire team with Charles Martin is that he's as focused and determined as he ever has been. I actually did the press conference, the virtual press conference, announcing the fight. And Charles Martin seems to be in the best place mentally that he's ever been. He's a big, strong guy. He's athletic. He has skill. But I think that now Charles Martin's head is actually in the game, and he's focused on being a top-level prize fighter. And I think that he's angry at the fact that people look at his heavyweight championship reign, albeit a short one, and say, well, was he really a champion? He was a champion. He just lost to Anthony Joshua. again, no shame losing to AJ because he's one of the best heavyweights in the world. But I think we're going to see the best version of Charles Martin on Saturday, January 1st.
Yeah, and just to step back about the Joshua fight, Joshua, again, he was on a hot streak. He was undefeated at the time. He looked, pretty unbeatable at the time. And so, he ran into a very, I would say, confident Anthony Joshua at that time. And also, Joshua can hit hard. Let's not take anything away from Joshua, even though he's, like I said, he got beat by Andy Ruiz, but he's, and Usyk at this point, he's still a very dangerous fighter. Now, as far as the motivation for Charles Martin, look, I think you should be motivated every fight. If you're a fighter, what's there not to be motivated about? That said, sometimes you can be very motivated and then extraordinarily motivated. And that's probably the case here with Martin. He is athletic. He is a big guy. He's 6'5". He's about an inch taller than Ortiz, who's 6'4". And again, he's a southpaw too. Now you got to remember, both these guys are southpaws. They don't normally go up against southpaws too often in the heavyweight division. There's very few of them.
Very true.
Usyk being the new addition to the southpaw championship, heavyweight championship. So I think this is a big key to the fight: is who's prepared to fight a southpaw the best. Most southpaw styles really are geared towards fighting right-handers. Because again, if you're a heavyweight and a southpaw, name the other southpaw heavyweights you're going to fight. There's not many of them out there. So, they're geared, the southpaws are geared, all their tricks and all their moves are geared towards other right-handers, not necessarily other southpaws. So I think the one who prepares for this one better in that respect and figures out how their southpaw style, work against another southpaw, I think that's probably the biggest factor in this right now.
Joe, how important is it for the winner of this fight to go out there, not only get the W between Luis Ortiz and Charles Martin, the main event of Fox Sports PBC pay-per-view, January 1st, as we kick off the year with all heavyweights, but it's not only important for them to win, but to win in impressive fashion, because right now it looks like, or it sounds like, maybe Fury has a date potentially, or will match up against Dillian White potentially. Usyk and AJ are going to run it back. Deontay Wilder, you don't know what's going to happen with him. Is he going to retire? Is he going to come back? So I think that the winner of this fight, if they look mightily impressive, can say, hey, look, the next title shot, I deserve it.
I think your assessment is correct. But, nobody goes into a fight thinking that they shouldn't look impressive. I think that it behooves both of them to look impressive while winning. So it's a big factor. If you look if one of the other guy dominates the other, that's saying something, because neither one of these guys are easily dominated. Aside from the two losses that Charles Martin had, one against a younger and more focused and somebody who had a lot of momentum behind him. That was Adam Kovnatsky. And then, of course, Anthony Joshua. So his two losses have been to legit, heavyweights, especially Joshua. And at that time, Kovnatsky looked really good. He looked like a shoo-in for the title at some point in his future. And of course, with Ortiz, his two losses only to Wilder. So they have been impressive for most of their careers, But again, who's going to be the winner? I think whoever the winner is of this fight is, just by default, is going to be impressive, So it is important, though, to win the fight first, and then impressive would be the next best thing. And you're right. If one or the other wins it and looks impressive, I don't think there's any question that they're going to be in short order, looking down the barrel of a title fight.
I completely agree with you, Joe. Now we look at the co-main event. It is between the undefeated Frank Sanchez and Carlos Negron. Should be a very interesting matchup. You got Negron, the Puerto Rican Olympian. You have Frank Sanchez, the outstanding amateur background from Cuba, now training with Eddie Reynoso. What is your assessment of our co-main event on January 1 on Fox Sports PBC pay-per-view?
Well, number one, I think Frank Sanchez looked absolutely really impressive against Ajagba. Ajagba is really a frightening guy in the ring. He may not be the most fluid guy in the world or athletic, but his size and power kind of makes up for what he may lack in that type of, maybe the agility or athletic factor or department. And Frank Sanchez boxed a beautiful fight and then almost KO'd him, Ajagba, in the 7th round. And he looked really strong. His punches looked stronger than normal. I think since the first time I saw Frank Sanchez when I announced his fight with Joey DeJecko a few years ago, he wasn't that impressive. And he needed to go to work on several things. But that was at the beginning with Reynoso. I think he's made a lot of strides. I think that he is punching much better, and he looks much smarter in the ring. I really like where Frank Sanchez is going right now.
Yeah, Sanchez, I have seen him evolve like you. I mean, he has obviously this very extensive knowledge and background from the amateurs, but he is sitting down in his punches more. He's hitting harder, and I think he's looking more to inflict damage upon his opponents instead of just quote unquote piling up points.
You're right. You've got to, sometimes when you have that many amateur fights and you're in the amateur system for a number of years, it's hard to make that transition to the pro game, which is, different rules, different expectations, and more rounds. So there's a lot of variables that go into that transition. And sometimes it takes time. I've had fighters that have come out of the Olympic movement as amateurs, Casamayor, Michael Nunn, just to name a couple, that it took a number of years to really make the complete transition to the pro game, fighting on the inside, using the smaller gloves, different rules. It's a lot rougher game than the amateurs. A lot more is allowed in terms of, what the type of punishment that you are allowed to sustain as opposed to the amateurs. The point system is different. What counts in the amateurs doesn't necessarily count in the pros, so on and so forth. So making that transition is not always easy because some of these guys have 200 amateur fights, and to break, a lengthy amateur career along with the number of fights and under those rules, boy, to make that flip to the pro game is not easy. And some guys never are capable of making it. So that's one thing that I applaud Frank Sanchez for. He's making that transition right in front of our eyes.
No question. And I honestly think, Joe, as I look at this card, we have 5 fights. You don't just get your typical 4 fights on a pay-per-view, 5 fights on the pay-per-view. But as I look at Sanchez and Negron, I look at Martin and Ortiz. If Sanchez goes out there and looks like he did in his last fight against Ajagba, I think, Joe, that he could potentially supersede the winner of our main event, maybe, and put himself in front of those guys because he is undefeated, because he is trained with Eddie Reynoso. And who knows, Eddie might have a very interesting dilemma on his hands. He has Andy Ruiz, who you matched up with him when you cornered Chris Arreola back on May 1st. And he's got Frank Sanchez as well. So, I mean, it'd be very interesting to see how Eddie juggles that.
I'm glad you mentioned Chris Arreola because Chris is an amazing guy. I love him to death. He's a wonderful human being. We get along great. And I thought his performance was stunning against Andy Ruiz. We almost had him out in the 2nd round and had him very hurt in the 3rd round. And won our share of the rounds. A share. I'm not going to say we won half of that, but we won our share of the rounds that I think was quite admirable for Chris, because he did something that he had never done before, and that was the box. We boxed Andrew Ruiz, and I think we kind of caught him off guard there. That being said, you're right. Frank Sanchez is on a fast track, and well, he should be. He's got a lot of experience behind him in terms of number of fights as an amateur, and now he's approaching the level of fights and competition that will put you in the running for a title shot. So he might be a few fights away. I think it would probably wise to give Frank Sanchez a little bit more seasoning. Let him get his newfound style and power that he's incorporating into a style through Eddie Reynoso. There's still a lot more to learn. There's an inside game that he's going to probably want to give a little attention to as well, because there are certain guys that will make you fight on the inside, whether you like to or not, and you want to make sure that you've got that intact. So a few more fights under his belt, and I think he's going to be ready for just about anything. That being said, his opponent, Negron, a former Olympian,
big time.
And I want to say Negron fought, even though he's like 6'6", I think he fought at like 175 early in his career. Am I right about that?
I believe you might be right on that. Yeah, I have to go and take a look at it, but I believe you might be right.
Yeah, he moved up to the heavyweight division a while back and put on some weight. But I will tell you, because he fought at that lighter weight, like let's say Holyfield did coming out of the Olympics, and moved up to heavyweight. Those guys that fight at middleweight, super middleweight, and in most instances light heavyweight, they kind of have the style of a smaller, the smaller weight guys, where the heavyweights have a distinct style unto themselves. Where Holyfield fought like he was a middleweight when he was a heavyweight, and so Negron, I think, has brought that capability with him to the heavyweight division, and I think that was pretty evident when he fought Dominic Brazil, which we called that fight. He was dominating that fight early on because he's got a really good variety of punches. He works the left hand really well. Again, like a smaller guy, he'll work that left uppercut, body, hook. He can quadruple up on left hands, which is not a typical thing in the heavyweight division. So Negron brings that with him. What happened to him, though, was he got hit with a bomb of a right hand against Dominic Brazil when he was languishing on the ropes, which was not a smart move for him. And that turned the tide, and eventually Dominic stopped him. But if he can maintain his pace and the volume of punches that he throws, and he throws a lot of punches, and stays off the ropes and uses the center of the ring, he's 6'6". Frank Sanchez is 6'4". But Negron is really tall and long. So this could be a very challenging fight for Frank Sanchez because Negron is, like I said, he's a very accurate puncher, and he's got a variety of punches. And he's pretty athletic for a guy 6'6".
I agree. And Joe, you mentioned about how Negron fought in the light heavyweight division a little bit over. He did fight in the light heavyweight division, or 177 back in 2010. So, he certainly put on quite a bit of weight since then. But look, since losing to Dominic Brazil and Brian Howard, he's won 5 straight. He has a lot of momentum coming into this fight. And I think he's somebody that you have to take account of and not necessarily overlook if you're Frank Sanchez.
Yeah, he's got 5. He's on a 5-fight win streak with 4 knockouts. He can punch.
No doubt.
He can hurt you. So this is a very interesting fight. This, I would say, maybe if you had to favor somebody, you're going to favor Frank Sanchez. I don't think by a wide margin, but he's probably favored when it comes to the books. But Negron he's a live opponent here, and he's got a lot to offer. And I think it's going to be a very tactical, calculating fight where both guys are going to land punches. I think it's going to boil down to who takes the better punch in this fight.
I completely agree with you, Joe. And you know what? It's going to be very telling to see which man can withstand the other's power. And another thing that we have to look at, that is the third fight up, is Michael Coffey and Johnny Rice. Johnny Rice coming out and getting that victory in New Jersey, upsetting Michael Coffey. Coffey had been on a run. Dare I say that Michael Coffey was one of the darlings of the bubble of boxing, as you like to call it, the buble of boxing, the buble of PBC boxing when they fought inside the bubble with no fans. He was the darling of the PBC bubble and buble. But now he came in, he ran into Johnny Rice. Rice goes ahead and just continued to land right hand after right hand after right hand. Now they run it back on January 1st. What are your thoughts about that rematch?
This is going to be, I think Michael Coffey, number one, he's going to be out for revenge, and well, he should be, because I think he was caught off guard by just how well prepared Johnny Rice was. And you got to give credit, and I give a lot of credit to Bones Adams, former world champion. Bones Adams, he's a wonderful guy, by the way. He's got a great gym out in Las Vegas. He's very personable. He's fun to talk to. He's very knowledgeable. And I think he brought all of that to the table, and a hard worker. I think he brought all of that to the table with Johnny Rice and kind of turned his career around, because Johnny Rice has had a lot of, he's hit a lot of bumps in the road along the way. But I think it came together for him once he hooked up with Bones Adams as his trainer, who I give a lot of credit to. Sometimes, you got trainers that just inherit a really talented guy, and you have a lot to do with it. But I think in this instance, Bones Adams was a major factor in this win by leading his fighter to victory.
And they had the right game plan, Joe.
He had a great game plan, but you to execute a game plan, you have to work hard to really execute it. You could devise one, but that doesn't mean you're going to be able to put it into action unless you train very diligently. And he just looked in great shape, Johnny Rice. He looked like he could have done that all night long. Now, on the other hand, Michael Coffey, I think he got caught off guard. I thought he was going to fight the Johnny Rice of a few fights. If you were watching,
when he fought Efe Ajagba, a fight removed after that. So
exactly. So I think Coffey now he's been put on notice, and he and his people are going to have to devise a plan, because look, if Johnny Rice comes out and why would you change that strategy? I don't think they're going to change that strategy. It would be foolish. But if he uses that same strategy, Coffey can't use the same strategy he used in the last fight.
No.
So it's going to be incumbent upon Michael Coffey's camp to figure a way to get to Johnny Rice, because Johnny Rice is not going to stand there and wait for Coffey. Okay. Coffey's going to have to somehow impose his will and force his way into Johnny Rice and get something, get some action going where he can actually land some of his heavy punches. And he is a heavy-handed guy. So this is going to be the conundrum for Michael Coffey, how to get to Johnny Rice if he implements the same strategy he had in the first fight, which was beautiful. I mean, that was shades of, and I'm not going to compare Coffey to Tyson or Johnny Rice to Buster Douglas, but that's kind of what it gave you the impression of. It was It was a guy that really just put everything together that night in terms of his talent and game plan, and just destroyed Michael Coffey. And it was a really beautiful thing to watch. That was great boxing, and vicious, straight, fast right hands, great jab, great movement, never slowed down, never left himself vulnerable to Michael Coffey, and never gave Coffey a chance to set up in front of him. So this is going to be a tall order for Michael Coffey to, figure out that little Rubik's Cube that he's going to have in front of him Saturday night.
And
I should say January 1st.
Yeah, January 1, live New Year's night is where we'll be coming your way from the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino down in South Florida. Ray Flores alongside the legendary Joe Goossen. Joe, my last question for you is how exciting is it to have an all heavyweight pay-per-view? I mean, one thing that fans love are the heavyweights. And the one thing I will say is you cannot blink, because at any one moment, bang, fight's over. Who could have predicted Johnny Rice was going to steamroll Michael Coffey? Well, guess what? They're running it back. We got, Charles Martin, Luis Ortiz. You got Frank Sanchez, Carlos Negron also in the card. You got Gerald Washington as well. Yago Kalaitzis. It's a fun night of boxing. But how exciting is it to have all heavyweights on the pay-per-view?
Well, you said something. Everyone loves heavyweights, including myself. We used to run to the TV when we were kids. Any heavyweight. I go back to, I don't want to say how far, but Ali, Frazier, Foreman, just starting with those guys there, moving up to, Tyson, Holyfield, Riddick Bowe, Razor Ruddock, going forward to, the fight, the heavyweights of the 2000s, and so on and so forth.
Of the world. And, obviously your broadcast colleague, Lennox Lewis, who was just
how did I even? Yeah, of course, Lennox Lewis, who dominated the heavyweight division for about a dozen years, and beat the best. So, to people that are even casual fans, they seem to know the heavyweights more than any other division. So it's very appealing. They're big guys, and everyone loves to see the big guys fight, because there's always fireworks with the big guys, and one punch can turn it around. One punch can lay you out like no other division. They're big, they're strong, they're determined, they're talented. I love the heavyweights, and believe me, if I wasn't in the boxing biz, and I was just a casual boxing fan, I would always gravitate to the heavyweight division. Even my friends and family and whatever, we were, before I was involved in boxing, we were heavyweight boxing fans. So I think this is an opportunity really to see the best heavyweights that are not heavyweight champions right now fighting. And these are the guys that will be fighting, the winners for the heavyweight championship sometime in the near future. So it's for me, it's unbelievable that I'm going to be able to announce these, and be ringside, because there's nothing like being at one of these fights. The second best thing is to see it on pay-per-view come January 1st. I'm really excited.
In the comfort of your own home is how you want to be as you go ahead. And honestly, you're just inviting us into your home. Joe Goossen, Lennox Lewis, two of the best boxing minds that you will ever encounter. We are very excited about it. The way I look at this card, Joe, heavyweight roulette. We are at a casino at the Seminole Hard Rock. It is heavyweight roulette. Who is going to have their number called and make it to the next level? Joe, thank you so much. Happy New Year, my friend. We'll see you down in South Florida.
Thank you, Ray. I really appreciate it. You're a good man. I love you, your brother Miguel, your family, and you've been nothing but great to the Goossen family. So, all respect to you and your family. And you're a great announcer. And I know in the near future, you're going to be at the top of the game yourself. So I'm happy for you, brother.
It means a lot. Joe Goossen, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for us. Happy New Year, everybody. And it's been the new year with 2022 with heavyweights, Fox Sports, PBC pay-per-view. Joe Goossen, Lennox Lewis. I'll tell you this, it doesn't get any better than those two. So check it out and allow them to sort of educate you on the sport of boxing while you're entertained by fistic fireworks with the heavyweights. Joe, have a great one, and we'll see you down in South Florida.
Thanks, Ray. Talk to you soon.